Welcome, dear listener. As you settle down, take a deep breath and let the soft whispers of the night guide you into rest. Tonight, I will take you to an ancient forest where an elf named Lirion follows a mysterious mist into a world full of secrets and forgotten memories. Let the calm rhythm of the story ease your mind and help you drift into a peaceful sleep. Relax and let the journey begin. On the farthest edge of an ancient elven forest, just where the trees grew sparse and the land sloped toward shadowed valleys, an elf named Lirion wandered under the dim light of dusk. A quiet seeker of hidden knowledge, Lirion often found himself drawn to places where others feared to tread. Yet this evening, as he followed a path he had not taken before, he felt a new stirring of unease. The birds had fallen silent. The wind lay still, and even the towering pines seemed to lean away, as though keeping their distance from something unseen. The mist came suddenly, a silent tide slipping over the forest floor. It was no ordinary fog, for its silver-grey fingers stretched out with purpose, as though guided by unseen hands. The mist was thick, dense, and so finely woven it seemed to absorb the fading light, casting everything in a shadowed, otherworldly hue. Lirion slowed his steps, feeling that the mist's presence was a threshold, an invitation to cross into the unknown. He peered into the swirling depths, where shadows danced like forgotten memories. As he took a step forward, his heartbeat quickened, and a chill seeped into his bones. It was not the cold of evening, nor the chill of fear. It was something deeper, as though he were moving into a place beyond time, a place that had waited in silence for centuries. The mist was alive with voices, faint whispers that seemed to drift from somewhere far beyond his reach. He could not make out words, yet their tone was unmistakable, a sad and haunting murmur, full of secrets too old for any mortal to remember. Lirion had heard tales of enchanted mists, but he had never imagined anything like this. Every step he took made him feel lighter, as if the world behind him were fading. Soon, all that surrounded him was the veil of the mist, thick as smoke, yet gentle as a sigh. "Lirion," came a voice, soft as a breath against his ear. He froze, but there was no one around. The mist had swallowed everything, even the trees, which now stood as vague shapes lost in the silver fog. The voice, whether it was a memory, an illusion, or something else, had called him by name. "Who speaks?" he whispered, though he did not expect an answer. The mist thickened in response, pressing close, nearly brushing against his skin. He reached out a hand, and the mist coiled around his fingers like silk, cool and strangely comforting. In that moment, he felt as if he was standing on the edge of a great discovery. His senses sharpened. The ground beneath him was different now. Older, uneven. Stones protruded from the earth. arranged not by nature's random hand, but by the minds of beings who had long since vanished from the living world. Before him rose the shadowy outline of an ancient archway, its stones weathered and cracked, but still standing. A sentinel of an age forgotten. Carved into the arch were symbols and runes, worn nearly smooth by time, their meaning lost to all but the mist that shrouded them. Lirion felt a thrill of wonder and awe as he looked upon this gateway, feeling in his heart that he had stumbled upon a place not meant for his kind. He took another step forward, his eyes tracing the intricate patterns. But then he paused, his instincts warning him to stay back. But curiosity had him in its grip, and he could not turn away. Instead, he reached out, brushing his hand over the stones, feeling the cool dampness that the mist had left behind. As he did, a sensation bloomed within him, a faint pulse, as if the stones themselves had a heartbeat, as if they held memories waiting to be stirred awake. Without thinking, he whispered the only word that came to mind, a name he did not recognize, but that felt ancient and true, a name as old as the mist itself. Elyria. The mist swirled at the sound, thickening and curling around him in an almost possessive embrace. The shadows within it shifted, moving faster, like dancers in some silent, forgotten ritual. And then, as if in answer, a sound rose, soft, melodic, drifting on the air like a lullaby. It seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, a melody that spoke of lost worlds, of ancient dreams and endless patience. As Lirion listened, his heart filled with a longing he could not name. This was not a place, he realized, but a memory, a realm hidden within the mist, preserved by time itself. The hum grew softer, drawing him forward through the archway. He could feel the weight of the unknown pressing upon him, but he did not turn back. With one last glance over his shoulder, he stepped fully into the mist, his form swallowed by its silver depths, leaving only the echo of his footsteps behind. And as the mist closed around him, the whispers grew louder, as though welcoming him home. The mist lifted just enough for Lirion to make out faint outlines, shapes that wavered and twisted in the ethereal glow. He stepped carefully, his boots crunching against stones slick with age and damp from the ever-present mist. What he saw around him was not the forest floor he had left behind, but a vast stretch of ancient ruins lying in solemn decay, hidden for centuries within this veil. Crumbling walls rose from the ground in fragments, moss-covered and shrouded in mystery. They seemed to reach out like hands from another time, and Lirion felt himself gripped by the weight of their silent stories. These ruins bore the unmistakable mark of a civilization long lost, perhaps Elven, perhaps older still. Arches that had once soared to great heights now sagged and leaned, their stonework etched with runes and symbols nearly erased by time. Yet there was a strange beauty here, a kind of forgotten reverence that seemed to linger in the air, holding its breath. As he moved deeper into the heart of the ruins, Lirion brushed his fingers over a crumbling pillar, feeling the roughness beneath his fingertips. There were carvings here, faint and weathered, whispering secrets that language could not contain. The design spiraled and twisted, each mark crafted with a purpose lost to the ages. He paused, transfixed by one image that had survived the wear of time. A figure with outstretched wings, delicate and otherworldly. A being with eyes that seemed to see through the stone, watching him even now. "Who were you?" he murmured, his voice barely a whisper in the heavy air. The mist swirled around his feet, curling like smoke, almost as if it were listening, waiting to see what he might discover. And then, just as he leaned closer to examine the figure, he felt a faint hum beneath his feet. A vibration so soft it could have been his imagination. But no, it was real. A steady pulse, deep within the earth, like the heartbeat of the ruins themselves. Drawn by the sound, he made his way toward the center of the ruins, where an ancient fountain stood, its basin cracked and empty. Carved figures lined the fountain's edge, their features worn smooth, yet their expressions held a sadness that seemed as old as the stones around him. Lirion stared at the basin, noticing how it reflected the mist like a mirror, showing swirling shapes and faint glimmers of light. And then, as if called by some invisible force, a single drop of water formed in the center of the basin, trembling like a tear suspended in time. It fell with a soft, echoing sound that rippled through the silence, filling the air with a strange melody. The hum from the earth grew louder, weaving itself into the music, until it sounded like the ruins themselves were singing, their voices rising in lament. The melody resonated with something deep within him, a yearning he could not name. It seemed to call to him, inviting him to listen, to remember, though he did not know what he was meant to recall. The music swelled, filling his mind with images. A vast city bathed in twilight. Figures moving through streets paved with silver light. Laughter that drifted on the breeze. But in each image, there was also shadow, creeping in from the edges, casting everything into darkness. Lirion's gaze dropped to the fountain's edge, where ivy grew thick and twisted, hiding something just beneath the leaves. He reached down, pulling back the vines to reveal a doorway half buried by time. The door was small, hardly noticeable, framed in rough stone and etched with symbols that seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light. He knelt, brushing away the dirt that had gathered in its crevices, feeling a chill run through him as he traced one of the symbols. A spiral, sharp at its edges, that seemed almost to vibrate beneath his fingers. A flicker of light caught his attention, and he looked up to see shadows moving within the mist. They shifted and drifted, not solid yet present, as though the spirits of those who had once lived here lingered, watching him in silence. He could almost hear them, their voices low and indistinct, woven into the mist that hung like a shroud around the ruins. For a moment, doubt gnawed at him, a sense that he had intruded on something sacred, something he was not meant to see. But the pull was too strong, the lure of the unknown too powerful to resist. The doorway beckoned, and though it was no larger than a simple stone frame, he felt as if it led into a world far greater, a place where time itself lay dormant, waiting to be awakened. Steeling himself, he rose and moved toward the doorway, his footsteps light and measured. As he drew closer, the shadows in the mist thickened, gathering in silent council, their forms flickering in and out of view. And then, just as he reached the threshold, he heard a soft voice, no more than a whisper, drift from the depths of the mist. "Lirion." The sound held a note of familiarity, a warmth that seemed out of place in this cold and forgotten world. His heart quickened, and he knew that whatever lay beyond the doorway would change him. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the rough stone, and took a deep breath. The air was heavy with secrets, with memories that were not his own, but that now seemed to press into his mind, urging him onward. Without looking back, he stepped through the doorway, leaving the ruins and their silent song behind, vanishing into the waiting shadows. And as he did, the mist closed in around him, its voice a soft lullaby, guiding him deeper into the unknown. As Lirion passed through the doorway, a weight lifted from his shoulders. The air here was different, filled with a sharp clarity that felt as though he had crossed into another layer of reality, one that breathed and pulsed with its own rhythm. The mist was gone, but in its place was a realm bathed in a strange, timeless light, a soft glow that seemed to emanate from everything around him. He found himself in a forest unlike any he had ever seen. Enormous trees with twisted silver bark rose into the sky, their leaves glistening as though touched by stars. The ground was carpeted in luminous moss, casting a faint blue-green light that danced across his boots as he moved forward. Every step felt both weightless and profound, as if this place bore the memory of every soul who had ever walked here. Lirion gazed up, noticing creatures perched in the branches, their eyes gleaming in the soft light. They were small, delicate beings, with wings of iridescent hues and faces that seemed both young and ancient. He recognized them from the oldest Elven stories, spirits of the forest, the watchers of ancient realms. Their gazes held no malice, only a quiet, knowing curiosity, as if they were assessing his worth. When he met their eyes, a sudden calm washed over him, a reassurance that he was welcome, though he sensed it was not given freely. In the heart of this strange forest, an open glade beckoned, and at its center stood a figure unlike any other. She seemed woven from the light itself, her skin the pale gold of dawn, her hair flowing like silvered starlight. Her eyes were deep, fathomless and ancient, and her expression held a quiet intensity that both invited and warned. She was Elyria, the spirit guardian of this lost world. "Lirion," she said, her voice soft yet ringing with a clarity that cut through the silence. The sound of his name spoken here felt like a tether, grounding him in a place where time itself seemed to unravel and drift. He inclined his head in respect, feeling an odd sense of familiarity, though he knew they had never met. "Elyria," he replied, tasting her name on his tongue, as though he had known it all his life. Her gaze softened, and she gestured to the glade around them. "You stand in the heart of an ancient memory, a world that was lost to all but those who remember." She extended her hand, and a faint, shimmering light spread outward, illuminating the ground. As he looked, shapes began to form in the air around them, like reflections caught in a pool of water. Visions unfolded, showing a city of breathtaking beauty hidden within this forest. Towers spiraled toward the sky, delicate and tall, crafted from stone that gleamed like polished moonlight. The inhabitants moved gracefully, laughter and song on their lips, their voices blending into a melody that seemed part of the world itself. It was a world full of life, a place where peace reigned under starlit skies. But shadows crept into the vision, dark and silent, moving with a purpose. Lirion watched as the faces of the people turned somber, and fear clouded their eyes. The city faded, swallowed by mist, as if it were retreating into itself to hide from a sorrow too great to bear. Elyria's voice broke through the vision, drawing him back. "This place, this realm, is what remains of that world," she said, her tone somber. "It lies hidden within the mist, preserved for those who seek it. And for those who find it, it offers answers, but also questions, truths, and trials. None may come here and leave unchanged." Lirion felt the weight of her words settle over him. He wanted to understand, to uncover the purpose that had brought him here. But a part of him hesitated, knowing that whatever he uncovered would change him forever. "Why was I allowed to enter?" he asked, feeling the tremor of uncertainty in his voice. Elyria smiled, a gentle, almost sorrowful expression. "This realm opens to those whose hearts seek beyond themselves. You walked into the mist not out of fear or curiosity alone, but because you felt something calling to you. That call was the memory of this place, reaching out to one who might carry its stories forward." With a graceful motion, she lifted her hand, and a delicate sphere of light formed above her palm. It shimmered and pulsed, showing glimpses of memories, lives lived and lost. "Take this," she said, extending it toward him. "It is a fragment of our world, of the lives and wisdom that remain here. Hold it close, for it will guide you and it will test you. And through it, you will learn what lies within your own heart. Hesitant but compelled, Lirion took the sphere. As his fingers closed around it, warmth spread through him, filling his mind with a rush of sensations and images, a stream of lives not his own. He saw hands shaping stone, felt the joy of music played in twilight, sensed the quiet sorrow of farewells spoken too soon. These were the echoes of the lost world, lingering memories that were now part of him. He looked up at Elyria, his heart heavy, yet filled with the newfound understanding. What must I do? Listen, she said, her voice a whisper that seemed to merge with the forest around them. And let your heart be the guide. You must seek the truth hidden within yourself, for it alone will lead you back from this realm. With those words, she faded into the trees, her form dissolving like morning mist under the rising sun. Lirion stood alone in the glade, the sphere of light pulsing softly in his hand. He knew his journey had only just begun, but already he could feel the shift within him, as if the very fabric of his being had changed. He turned back toward the trees, knowing that he had to confront the truths that lay within his own heart, for only then would he find his way through the mysteries of this lost world. The forest shifted as Lirion moved, its shapes melting and reforming around him like the edges of a dream. He felt Elyria's presence in every shadow, her watchful gaze lingering in the dappled light. The sphere she had given him lay nestled in his palm, its soft glow like a heartbeat pulsing in rhythm with his own. The glade was far behind him now, and before him stretched a path lined with towering trees that seemed to bend inward, forming a tunnel woven from branches and leaves. At the tunnel's end stood a hall of mirrors. Each glass pane rose from the ground, floating with a weightless stillness that seemed to defy the laws of the world. They stretched high, merging into the dark canopy above, creating a labyrinth of reflections. He paused, gazing into the nearest mirror, where his own image stared back. Yet it was not quite his own. The face in the mirror was younger, his eyes bright with the innocence of another time, before shadows had carved their lines around his gaze. Each mirror holds a piece of you. A whisper seemed to float through the air, its source unseen. The mirrors beckoned him, their silvered surfaces drawing him forward, inviting him to peer into lives he had forgotten or had yet to understand. In the first mirror, he saw himself as a child, wandering alone through a field of wildflowers. He remembered this place, a forgotten valley where he had spent hours weaving dreams from dandelion fluff, believing himself capable of anything. The boy in the mirror laughed freely, his spirit unbound by fear. Lirion watched, feeling a pang of loss, for that innocence was long gone, replaced by the weight of knowledge and the scars of a life spent in solitude. He moved to the next mirror, where another vision awaited. a version of himself in the throes of grief, kneeling by a fallen tree. He remembered this too, the day he had watched his closest friend fade into the earth. The mirror reflected his own sorrow, his hands trembling as he buried the memories, hiding them from himself to carry on. Yet here, in the heart of this lost world, they returned, raw and unchanged. Each mirror he passed revealed fragments of his soul, hopes, regrets, fears, dreams, all held within the glass, preserved by the realm like relics of a forgotten time. The further he walked, the more the mirrors showed him truths he had tried to hide, even from himself. He stopped before a larger mirror, framed in silver leaves, its surface rippling in though alive. In this mirror, he saw himself standing at a crossroads, surrounded by mist. This was a vision of the present, a choice unfolding before him, though he did not yet know its nature. His reflection watched him, eyes clear and piercing, as if asking, "Do you understand what it is you seek?" A voice rose within him, soft yet insistent. He realized it was the voice of the sphere he carried, the fragment of the lost world. It filled his mind with a question, one that echoed in the silence around him. "What is it you desire, Lirion? What truth will you face?" The answer was buried within him, hidden beneath layers of time and silence. He knew that he had come seeking knowledge, a way to understand the world beyond its surface. But now, standing here, faced with the spectres of his own heart, he saw a deeper longing, a yearning for connection that he had never allowed himself to acknowledge. He had lived his life in isolation, seeking wisdom without truly understanding his own heart. As he gazed at his reflection, he felt the weight of those hidden desires, a deep-seated loneliness that had driven him into the mist. The mirrors had stripped him bare, revealing the vulnerability he had cloaked in mystery and independence. The sphere pulsed in his hand, warm and comforting, as if in response to his revelation. And then, as if summoned by his acceptance, Elyria's voice echoed softly in his mind. "The truth within your heart is your path home, Lirion. Only by embracing all that you are, without fear, can you find your way through the mists." The mirrors around him began to blur, their reflections merging and dissolving into one another. The fragments of his past and present coalesced, uniting into a single clear image. He saw himself standing tall, unburdened, no longer hiding from the fears and regrets he carried. He saw himself as whole, every part of his journey woven into his being. With a deep breath, he closed his eyes, letting the image settle within him. The mirrors faded away, and he was left standing alone in a quiet moonlit grove, the hall of reflections gone as if it had never existed. When he opened his eyes, he felt a peace he had not known before, a calm certainty that he carried the answer within him. He was ready to return, ready to carry the lost world's memory with him. Elyria's gift had shown him the truth of his heart, and now he understood that his journey was not merely to uncover ancient knowledge, but to embrace the wisdom within himself. Turning from the grove, he set his gaze toward the path he had come from, feeling the pulse of the sphere in his hand, a soft beacon guiding him back. The mist gathered around him once more, but now it parted at his approach, leading him home. The mist swirled around Lirion as he made his way back along the path that had led him into the realm of memories. But now, the mist no longer felt heavy or haunting. Instead, it welcomed him like an old friend, soft tendrils curling around him with a gentleness he hadn't noticed before. Each step felt lighter, as though the weight of his journey had lessened, as though he had left a part of himself behind and gained something else in its place. The sphere in his hand pulsed with a soft, steady light, warm against his skin. It had grown quieter since his trial in the Hall of Mirrors, its message delivered and received, its purpose understood. Yet he knew it still held secrets, mysteries he would carry forward into the waking world. In his mind, he could still see the faces in the mirrors, their memories lingering like echoes. They were parts of himself he had not fully understood, pieces now woven together, united into a whole. He walked until the mist began to thin, the towering trees of the realm fading into the shadows. Ahead, he saw a break in the fog, a familiar glow seeping through, the edge of the forest he had left behind. But before he could cross into the world, he knew. A familiar figure stepped forward, materializing from the mist with a silent grace. Elyria stood before him, her eyes holding that same timeless depth, yet softened by a look of quiet satisfaction. Her gaze drifted to the sphere in his hand, and a faint smile curved on her lips, as if she could see the transformation within him. "You have found what you came seeking," she said, her voice as soft as the mist itself. "Yet you will leave with more than knowledge, Lirion. This gift you carry will remind you of what you have learned here and of the truths that lie within." Lirion looked down at the sphere, its light casting gentle patterns on his palm. He understood now that it was more than a fragment of the lost world. It was a symbol of his journey, a reminder of the choice he had made to embrace all of himself. "Will I remember everything?" he asked, a note of hesitation in his voice. "Memories fade, but wisdom remains," she replied. "The realm of the mist will linger in your heart, though its details may blur with time. And when you look upon this sphere, you will remember the path you walked and the truth you uncovered. Let it guide you when the shadows return, for they will come, as they do for all." He nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over him. He knew he would carry the mist's memory with him, even if he could not recall every step. It would live in the quiet spaces of his mind, guiding him in moments of doubt, faint whisper, reminding him of who he had become. Elyria extended her hand, and Lirion placed the sphere into her palm. She closed her fingers around it, and for a moment, the light within it grew bright, casting a soft silver glow that illuminated the mist. When she opened her hand again, the sphere had transformed. It was now a delicate crystal vial, filled with a silver mist that swirled and shimmered like star-dust caught in water. "This is your parting gift," she said, holding it out to him. "Within this vial is the essence of the mist. It will come when you call, showing you the hidden paths, revealing the truths that dwell just beyond sight. Use it wisely, for it holds the wisdom of those who came before and of those who have yet to walk the path." Lirion took the vial, feeling its warmth seep into his fingers. He slipped it into a pocket close to his heart, where it settled with a comforting weight. He felt as though a part of this ancient realm would remain with him, a bridge between worlds that he could call upon when he needed it most. Elyria inclined her head, a gesture of quiet farewell. "Go now, Lirion," she said, her voice softening. "The mist will close behind you, but its memory will live on. You are now part of its story, just as it is part of yours." With a final glance back at the ethereal forest and the ancient trees that watched in silence, Lirion stepped forward, crossing the threshold where the mist met the world he knew. The air shifted, lighter and clearer, the shadows thinning as he moved away from the realm of memory. Behind him, he heard the soft whisper of the mist retreating, folding itself back into the hidden spaces of the world, leaving no trace of the doorway he had crossed. He emerged into the familiar forest, the night air crisp and filled with the scent of pine and earth. The stars shone overhead, untouched by the mysteries he had just encountered, their light steady and unchanging. Yet as he gazed up, he felt a new connection to that starlit sky, a kinship with the vastness that stretched beyond sight. The vial of mist lay warm against his chest, its presence a quiet reminder of the journey he had taken and the truths he had claimed. He knew he would return to this forest many times, that he would walk these paths with new eyes, seeing the world not as he had before, but with the wisdom gifted to him by the lost world hidden within the mist. And as he began the long walk home, he felt a soft whisper in his mind, the lingering echo of Elyria's voice, a reminder that the heart's journey is never truly over, that every step forward reveals new depths, new mysteries waiting to unfold. So Lirion walked, his footsteps light, his spirit at peace, carrying within him the gift of the mist, the wisdom of the forgotten, and the knowledge that he would never walk alone.